I've been covering the White House since April, the last April of the Bush administration. So not last April, but the April before. Well, the White House is the crown jewel of Washington, especially for reporters, and I think that you have access to some of, the obviously the most important people, not only the president himself, obviously that access is limited, but the people who are in his inner circle and the people who are helping him make some of the biggest decisions that are influencing all kinds of policy and politics around the world, not just in America, but really beyond. So I think, the job of a White House reporter is really to hold those people accountable and also to get to know them, to get inside, to try to figure out how the president is making his decision and how he's really governing. I mean, we are so privileged to be in this position. There's only a handful of us, as many as can fill this room. So I think that, you have a great responsibility in that respect. I think that, in a way, I don't want to be so presumptive to say that we speak for the people, but I think that we can raise issues that a lot of people in the electorate are feeling, and hopefully hold them accountable and maybe make them think in different ways or remind them that they are public servants at the end of the day. So I think that back and forth is healthy for government. Oh, I think the press secretary probably has the hardest job besides the president in the White House. I mean, having to deal with all of us and having to be the public face of the president on some of the hardest issues of the day. Not only the president, but anyone in the administration who has any kind of a slip up, the press secretary is the one who has to sort of bear the brunt of that. So, and at the same time also to deliver the message to the press about what the president is doing, because we don't see so much of what he does. I mean, we'll see a speech here, a Marine One walk there, a handshake here and there, but we don't really get to see the nuts and bolts of what he's doing, and obviously that's probably better because he wouldn't be able to get anything done. But for him to tell us, to basically be the, to relay everything the president is doing and to make us aware and also remind us of what he's up to. I don't know, that was very poorly said, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised because, well, we're only a second amount of time, but both of you, there's not a hint of, like, an adversarial description, like, his job is to, like, blow us off.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I think, working first, with Dana Perino and her team, and now with Gibbs and his team, I mean, these people, in a way, they're not your colleagues in the way that Jake and I are your colleagues, but they definitely, you're playing a role and they're playing a role, and I think that those are healthy relationships, and they get combative, and they can get really, feisty. Not only what you see here in the briefing room, but also some of the exchanges that we have off camera with each other, over email, over the telephone. I mean, it gets rough, but that's healthy. That's important. It's sort of like a marriage, like a good marriage. You have a fight every once in a while to kind of air it all out, and I think that the same is true between the press secretary and the press. I think that sometimes it would be better if they didn't air the briefings on TV, because I think there is, especially in the beginning, but not as much now, when Gibbs first came in and this administration first started, and they would just pour the whole briefing, on cable. I think then there's a lot of grandstanding and a lot of, I'm going to sound really smart during this question, and I think that, sometimes we have the gaggle in Gibbs' office, and that can be much more of an information exchange because nobody is trying to one-up anybody else. Here, everyone's on camera, everybody knows it, and so I would maybe take the cameras out. Well, I think just what happened over Christmas is a great example of how unpredictable the White House can be. I'm from Hawaii, so I went with the president to Hawaii to cover his vacation. I covered it last year when he was the president-elect. Last year we did all these cultural lifestyle pieces, and it was very sort of a mellow, relaxing. I mean, it wasn't a vacation by any means. You're still working, but the whole tone of the vacation and the whole tone of the coverage is very light. This year, Burton starts out, as he does with every vacation, telling us there's going to be no news, and then boom, of course, you have Abdullah Muttalib on the 25th trying to set off a bomb on an airplane and changing the whole tenor of the vacation. We worked around the clock. I mean, it was nonstop, especially with the time difference. You're live for Good Morning America at 2 a.m. in Hawaii, and everyone thinks that you're on a beach, and I think that really encompasses just how the president never gets a day off, and that even if he's miles away in Hawaii in its own time zone, Hawaii actually has its own time zone, that you never stop working. I mean, that was clear for the press, and it was also clear for his staff. I know that some in the press office probably would have liked to have a more mellow experience, but that didn't happen.
big of a blip was Limbaugh's hospitalization for you guys? Did you?
It was huge. It was huge. I had to do both stories, which was kind of funny because, I mean, of course, there is a natural intersection because he is a political figure, and I think a pretty big one and a pretty important one. So it makes sense that if he's hospitalized, especially given his history, his own acknowledged history with prescription pain medication and sort of the implication there, and there were rumors that he had perhaps been using prescription medication, and so that sort of all came together, and we obviously had to go to the hospital, and then he held a press conference where he took no questions, so I don't know what kind of a press conference that is, but, there again, you never know what's going to come up.
Were you at that press conference?
I sure was.
Did you have a question ready?
We all had questions ready. Ed Henry was quick on the take, and he asked one. He asked if he was back on pain meds, and Mr. Limbaugh said no.
Person to you.
I think on a personal level, I would love to have a conversation with the Dalai Lama to figure out how somebody who faces that much adversity, can face life with so much peace in his heart, because that's somebody I think who's faced so many challenges, and at the same time says that he's a simple monk and sort of approaches life with just, obviously this peace that comes with his religion and his post. But he also is interesting because he's a political leader and a religious figure, and so I would love to have a conversation with him about that. And then, of course, Jesus,
What would you ask Jesus?
Well, is it true? Are you the Son of God, right? That would be probably the scoop of the century.
Now, if you say yes, what would your follow-up be?
How do I get in? I watch a little reality TV. I like The Bachelor, The Biggest Loser. Some pretty bad ones. And I like 2.5 Men, and Jake kids me to no end about that. He thinks I have terrible taste.
Biggest Loser, I stopped watching after the first season, but I got to ask you, do they still do that thing where they say, time to cut the fat?
Yeah, and then
They really still say that?
I don't know if they say that exactly. I've heard that term, though.
I remember when it first came on, and I was like, oh, this is so great, they're compassionate, it's heartwarming, and then they go to the thing, and they're like, okay, time to cut the fat.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think I heard that in the last one. But, it's an interesting reality TV show. It's the one reality TV show where everybody wins in the end, if you lose all the weight. It's not like The Bachelor or some of those other where it's a bunch of backstabbing, whatever. But that's, fun to watch.
That's one of the reasons I liked it. I just didn't like that cut the fat.
Mean. Yeah, mean.
What about Jersey Shore? You watch Jersey Shore?
No, this is a confession. Actually, I don't have cable, which makes me unique, and Jake also gives me a lot of crap about that. I watch so much television at work that when I get home, I watch a little bit of the networks, and then I go to bed. It's pretty bad. One of the big things for me this year has been doing Twitter and all of the interaction I have with that. So I love it when people interact with us that way. I think that we get a lot of comments on our blog, and most of them tend to be political tirades, and I don't really know what's going on. But one of the things I like about Twitter is that we have all this viewer interaction, and so I encourage people to talk to us about our stories. If you don't like our coverage, tell us, because we're doing it for the viewers. We're not doing it for ourselves.